Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of In the Spotlight. I'm Mike Panici, and I'm really excited tonight because it was around 1994 when I first saw this talented actress, martial artist, voiceover, personal trainer. She was on a TV show called VR Troopers, and from there, I followed her career forever. She's a credit to Hollywood. In football, the offensive linemen do all the work. They never get credit. The backs get all the glory. You could say the same for her because she's a stunt person who does all the work but doesn't get the credit she deserves. But she is an unbelievable, very gifted actress, and it is my pleasure to introduce to you Brandie Sylfae. And Brandie, thank you for coming on today. It's a real honor for me.
Thank you so much for asking me to be here, Mike.
So, Brandie, I think from the time you were a little kid, you had to persevere because, correct me if I'm wrong, you went to five different elementary schools in three different states, correct?
I did. Have I had that conversation with you?
No, just did my research, but that's pretty impressive, and that's also not easy for any kid to go through because you're trying to get comfortable in one school, and then you have to go to a different one. Then you're moving to a different state. That's a lot for a young kid to go through,
Yeah.
and it sounds like to me from your childhood early on, you knew how to be a fighter. So talk about that a little bit.
So yeah, I did in fact go to five different elementary schools in three different states. Started in California, went to Washington State, and then came back to California, and then we went to Texas for a while, and then went back to California, and I stayed in California for the rest of my school. Um, but yeah, I was always the new kid.
Yeah.
That was definitely a thing. I was always having to either make new friends or just be okay being alone.
Right.
Um, but generally speaking, I was out there making new friends, trying to have people to play with because it was elementary school and you want to play kickball and foursquare and whatever else you want to have friends to do that with. Um,
And now,
but
did you have siblings growing up where like made the move a lot easier for you, or were you an only child? Or
only child all
wow,
the way, only child all the way. Yeah. So it was at some point it just became me and my mom, and that was later in life. That was more towards high school where it was just the two of us. Um, and there was still a lot of moving around, but it was in the same area because I had gone to so many different elementary schools. I was like, "I really wanna stay in the same high school. Can we do that, please?" And, my mom made sure that I was able to stay in the same high school, so that was nice. But in that area, that's actually where when I started martial arts because I was 11
right,
when I started martial arts, and part of the impetus to starting martial arts was because, once again, I was the new kid. "Hi." I know her.
yeah,
That was a fun that headshot got me a lot of commercial auditions back in the day.
right,
Oh,
yeah.
that's a good one.
And what people may not know, I know a lot of your fans do, but you went to the United Fight and Arts Federation, which was owned by Chuck Norris, and you know, again, they don't get any better than Chuck. I mean, when you talk about martial arts, his name's always going to be mentioned. So I
Yeah.
don't know, like as a young kid, if you could have appreciated it back then, but I'm sure years later it had to hit you like, wow, I trained under Chuck Norris. That had to be something special.
Yeah. So the studio that I went to was called Black Belt Karate in Westminster, California, and it literally was across the street from my house. Like we lived in a neighborhood. It was very much a little bedroom neighborhood, but right across the street from this neighborhood was this strip mall with a bowling alley and restaurants and a grocery store, which I don't remember which one it was now, but it also had this karate studio. And I, the reason I started was because I had been going to school in it was the sixth grade. Had to have, yeah, was the sixth grade. And there was a girl who had been picking on me all year long. And I'm short. I am not tall. I am 5'2", and this girl was much bigger than me. And my mom was taking me to go to summer camp. And when we got to the place where I was gonna get on the bus to go because it was a YMCA camp, the girl who had been picking on me all year, she was there. And my mom was like, "Nope, you're not getting on the bus. I'm not gonna let you go. I don't want you to be with this girl all for, for a couple of weeks in the summer." And we literally drove from the YMCA bus pickup to the martial arts studio, and my mother enrolled me in martial arts that day. She was like, "If you're going to get picked on, you're going to be able to protect yourself." So that's how it all got started, and literally, there was no, like, trying out different studios or looking for a good one or whatever. It was just literally the one that was across the street from my house.
And what's ironic, Brandy, is you went there because you were being picked on. So you really had no desire to do martial arts. And within 3 years, I think you were 14 when you got your first black belt, first degree black belt.
I
So
was.
it took you 3 years. And just like interviewing different martial artists over the years, it's taken them like sometimes 5 or 6 years. So to get it in 3 years, it's almost like fate took over. It's almost like nobody should ever get bullied, but it was like a sign from somebody because we were met, people didn't realize just how gifted you were because to do it in 3 years is remarkable.
Thank you, and it it was definitely not a normal thing to get it in 3 years. I worked really hard, and I was oh, that's from Roseblood.
Yeah.
That was a short film that I did, a horror film.
Right.
This was the before. The after is much more bloody.
But yeah, again, back to what we were saying, to do it in 3 years, it wasn't something that was normal. And the
No,
fact that you did that, I mean, that's why a lot of times parents, especially mothers, I mean, they just play such a part in your life because they open doors for you that you never thought were possible. And this was one of them.
yeah, 100%. This was 100% my mom, and it was one of those things where I'm not gonna say that, like, I was super good at it to start because I don't think I was. I was 11. I was maybe a little gangly and not necessarily fully in control of my body, but it was something that I really enjoyed. So I wanted to keep doing it, and I would go to class 5 or 6 days a week because that was what was available, like, I would go Monday through Friday and then Saturday morning as well. And sometimes as I got higher up in rank, sometimes I would also go to Sunday because we had this really great, judo and jujitsu class
Yeah.
that was on Sunday. And so sometimes 7 days a week I was at the studio working out because I just wanted to be better.
And the thing is, too, Brandy, that's a credit to your dedication and your commitment because it's not an easy thing to stick with. You have to, in my opinion, really enjoy doing it because if you don't enjoy doing it, that's how you really get hurt. Because
Yeah.
you go into it. If you go into it timid and you're not really liking it, you really shouldn't do it. So the fact that you stuck it out tells says a lot that you really wanted to be special in that sport.
I really enjoyed doing it, and I will tell you this, I did get hurt. I got hurt a lot. Everything from jamming a big toe so that my foot swelled up so I couldn't fit it in my shoe. That was fun, walking around on crutches for a while from that. Um, to there was one time I was fighting with somebody who was much taller than me, and his reach was just twice mine.
Yeah.
And he got in a sidekick because we were sparring, and he got in a sidekick and literally kicked me across the room and kicked me across the room through a doorway of a dressing room, and I hit the wall on the back. So that was pretty hard.
Yeah.
That was one of the first hard hits I took. I've been dropped on my head.
Uh,
That was fun. Um, I dislocated my shoulder in a jujitsu class much later on. That's been repaired twice. I've had 2
right.
surgeries on my shoulders to repair that. So, yeah, I've and then doing stunts on films, definitely have been injured doing that, much to my chagrin.
Right. But Brandie, you got to be proud of what you accomplished in that sport, because 2 years later, at age 16, you get your second degree black belt. And to do that, like I said, to do that in such a short time, in 5 years, you had two black belts. That is something that I don't think a lot of students can, kind of brag about and say they've done that, but you have. And I mean, you're always so humble about it that, I mean, there's got to be a part of you that looks back and, you have to smile and be happy with what you've accomplished.
Definitely. And but in particular in the United Fighting Arts Federation, um, after you get your first degree black, generally speaking, and you know what? I have not been overly active in UFAF in a really long time, so I don't know if this has changed, but back when I was active, it was you get your first degree black, 2 years, so that was standard. 2 years, you test for your second degree black. 3 years after that, you test for your third degree black, and then anything after third degree was considered honorary by what you gave back to the community. What were you doing in your community in particular, and what were you giving back to UFAF as a whole, which I think is a wonderful way to do that. A lot of other organizations don't have that kind of community service aspect to them, which I've always liked about UFAF. I thought that was very cool.
Right. And it's funny, you brought up giving back to the community, which you've done for many years. And you're the co-organizer of the Portland chapter of the Harry Potter Alliance. It's a nonprofit focused on literacy and human rights. So talk about that a little bit, because that's a great project.
Yeah, so I actually resigned this year. I didn't make an announcement, but I resigned as the co-organizer and the headmistress. I was the headmistress of the Portland chapter of the Harry Potter Alliance. We are PD Expelliarmus, a nonprofit that helps other nonprofits. A lot of the work that we did goes towards, or still do, they're still doing it, goes towards children's children's causes, schools raising money for books and school supplies, getting school supplies and different books for different classrooms. We do a lot of in person. Um, there's a lot of in-person events where we collect actual physical things like book bags and pencil cases and notebooks that we give to different schools. During the pandemic, we had to change a little bit, and we moved over to there's a website called Donors Choose, and Donors Choose is a list of different teachers around the United States, and they have um, the things that they need for their classrooms. And after JK and her thumbs started going awry, and all of the transphobia that was coming from her, we shifted a little bit, and we went from just specifically doing things for children in general to queer youth and POC youth, and we were really making sure that the work that we were doing was kind of flying in her face, because we supported different trans charities. There's a place here in Portland called the Q Center. We made sure that we gave them as much money as they would take from us, and the thing that has recently, I'm like, I'm having a problem talking about this because it was really, really hard for me to leave, because
Yeah.
I was like, I'm the one who started it here. And there was another person, her name is Boss Porter, and she's amazing, and it would not exist as it does right now without Boss.
Right.
She has done so much work, and she's the deputy headmistress. So I always said, as the headmistress, I'm the one who does all the talking, and as the deputy headmistress, she's the one who does all the actual work, and that's mostly true. She was the one who like did all of our paperwork and everything. But because I couldn't support JK anymore, like, I got to the point where keep I couldn't keep explaining myself as to why I was still raising money for charity, even though we were literally raising thousands of dollars every year, make close to $10,000 sometimes, and giving it straight to charity. Uh, I still like I can't defend JK and her stance, so I had to step back from it. that having been said, tomorrow on Friday, we're getting an award from Friendly House Elder Services. We're
Oh,
getting something that's called their Elder Award, their Legacy Award, because we raised money for them last year at our Yule Ball, and we gave them, I think it was $4,000, and they used that money, um, from what I understand, not 100% certain, but it was supposed to go to their program that matched youth with like grandparent age folks,
right.
so that the youth would get a queer mentor, and the older folks would have a younger person to help keep them young. So we're gonna get an award for that tomorrow. And
Wow.
I have mixed feelings. I have mixed feelings about it, but I'm really, really proud of all of the work that we have done and all of the hard work that everybody who's involved with the Harry Potter Alliance here in Portland, which we're not supposed to be called Harry Potter Alliance anymore. We're Harry Potter activists because
Yeah.
the large group, which was the national, now international group, they're called Fandom Forward now. They're no longer the Harry Potter Alliance.
Right. Well, I mean, needless to say, though, Brandy, I mean, anytime that you give back to something and you do something like you've done for these many years, I mean, it, you know, the impact it has, it never goes unnoticed. So, I mean, you really getting this award is like not the payback, but it's to validate that you are doing something worthy in your life, you know?
Yeah, it is definitely, it feels it feels really good to be recognized, but again, we've been doing this for this over 7 years, and this would be the first time we've gotten recognized, so, we've never really done it for the recognition. We've always just done it because we wanted to support youth, and whether it was our first couple of programs that we supported were Chick Tech and Girls Build, which puts, because that was when the overall campaign for the year was called a World Without Hermione, which celebrated the contributions of women and girls in society. So we specifically picked uh, two charities that focus on young girls, and Chick Tech and Girls Build. Um, girls in the first one helps girls in technology spaces, and the other one literally puts power tools in the hands of young girls and teaches them how to build things.
Uh,
So both of which were awesome charities, and I was so excited for those to be
yeah,
charities that we supported early on.
it really is a great thing. So a lot of people, Brandy, you definitely martial arts plays a part in your career, but what people also are big fans of is your acting. And I mean, you started training in theater at the Department of Cal State, and I mean, you have this theater background. I mean, I think you did a film, Inherit the Wind, which was great, and Annie Get
Oh.
Your Gun. So talk about just being in theater and what that meant to you.
Right. So Inherit the Wind and Annie Get Your Gun were two stage plays that I did when I was in college. Those were like some of the earliest things that I did that were out of high school. Um, Annie Get Your Gun was super fun because it was a musical. I'm not a good singer. I got cast because I'm a good dancer. And the singing, it was like in spite of the fact that I'm not a good singer. And I have taken lessons. Let me tell you, I used to take voice lessons. I was paying money when I first moved to Hollywood. I was paying money to take voice lessons. And I was like, I'm just not overly good at this. And this is money that I could be using to buy food with. So I stopped. Because I just was like, this is not my thing. But that having been said, I am a very good dancer. I started dance when I was single digits, very, very young. Dance and then gymnastics and then competitive dance and then martial arts. So I have always been a physically oriented person. Um, but that was a super fun time because I loved doing the dancing and being on stage
Yeah, and
in that way.
I always say, Brandy, that when you go on stage, what people forget is you got to do this night in and night out and
Mhm.
live. You know, it's not like TV where you do these takes and you do it till you get it right. When you're out there in theater, you have to have it right. And every night you try to be better than you were the night before. So I mean, it's a lot of pressure, but I'm sure you get a rush from doing it as well.
It's the best. I love being on stage, and I haven't been on stage since 2018.
Yeah.
I did another musical, oddly enough, um, called Whiskey Dixie and the Big Wet
Yeah.
Country.
Yeah.
And it is hilarious, and I absolutely adore everything and everyone associated with this film. Well, it's a film now. See how I just skipped right ahead?
Yeah.
Back in 2018, it was a stage play, and in 2019, we filmed it. And it's just now coming out because the woman who wrote it, directed it, and starred in it, um, COVID happened, and then she had a baby, and everything just got pushed back, but it's finally done, and I'm so pleased with it, and but doing it being on stage was ridiculously fun, and I got to sing again in a chorus. It's fine, like, in the entire thing, I have 3 I think 3 lines that are just me, so that's okay, but the rest, I'm in the chorus. um but the thing about that was Amanda Richards is the person who wrote, directed, and starred in it. She's amazing on every level, and we were in acting class together, and at some point she wrote this screen or she wrote the stage play, um, and she wrote this little part for me, and I was actually getting ready to leave. I was literally packing my boxes and giving things away and getting ready to move down to California, and because I'm in Portland, Oregon. And she was like, "But can you just stay to do this play?" And I was like, "But I literally have things in boxes." And she was like, "It's like it'll be 2 more months. Like, just stay." So I was like, "Okay, is it a small part? Because I don't have a whole lot of time to commit to this because I'm doing other things." And she's like, "Yeah, it's a small part. It's totally a small part." And then I read it and I was like, "This is hilarious. Okay, yes, I will do this." And it was a small part. And then as we continued to through rehearsals, she kept writing more and more and more for me. And then all of a sudden, I am the surprise third protagonist in the play. And it's a much bigger part than I intended. But you know what? I love it so much. And she wrote it for me.
Right.
And so it's like the easiest thing I will ever do in my life is play Trish in either the stage play or the film.
And sometimes, Brandy, things like that happen by accident. When you're not intending to do something and then you do it, it becomes something that's a big part of you. And you say to yourself, wow, thank God that happened for me because I would have missed out on a great opportunity. And that's what, like, what you do is so special because you just never know what's going to come around the corner.
Yeah.
And you know, the other thing is too, another mentor I know that you really value a lot is Kate Gear, and you
Mm.
trained her for Shakespeare and stuff. So just talk about Kate because I know she played a big part in your career.
So Kate Gear was way back in the day. And I we used to go to her house. Was it Topanga Canyon? Laurel Canyon? It was one of the canyons. It's so long ago I don't remember. Um, but would just we would we did it all in her living room.
Yeah.
And we were like there was a class, there was like 10 of us in the class, and it was an incredibly supportive place to learn something that for me was very different than anything I had really ever done because I didn't do a lot of Shakespeare in college. I just did a lot of we did straight things. It just wasn't something that we were doing then. Um, so to have somebody as supportive and as knowledgeable and as incredibly talented as Kate Gear to be the person to bring Shakespeare into my life, I am forever grateful for that.
Yeah. I mean, and it sounds, listen, Shakespeare is just so awesome to really, take part in. And then, another person that you did improvs with was Paul Ryan, I believe.
Yeah, Paul
Yeah.
Ryan, CBS Comedy on the Lot with Paul Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, that had to be a lot of fun. Talk about that a little bit.
that was a lot of fun. Again, ages ago, ages ago. There it was a comedy improv class, and that was a bigger class, maybe closer to 20 of us in the class, and that was where I learned yes and, like, it's where everybody, you take improv and you learn the yes and you realize that there's an entire world of acting and comedy out there that you had never done before because improv is its own specific thing. And comedy improv is different than drama improv, and when you're in drama classes, which is pretty much the only thing I had ever taken up to that point, you do dramatic improv, and dramatic improv is completely different. That's not dramatic at all.
Right.
That is fairy worlds. I
Yeah.
don't know that's me in front, I don't know the name of the fairy in the middle. The fairy in the back, her name is Alessandra, she goes by Alley Cat, she's delightful, she's a face painter and a fairy hair tire, and, I just hung out with her this weekend at Ren Fair.
Yeah. And we'll get to that in a minute. But I would just think that when you're learning from different people like this who are so talented and they make it look so effortlessly, I mean, that's again, it's a career that has just had so many rewarding things. I would think that's what, has been the most invaluable part of your career.
Yeah, I have had the odd recurring happenstance that I fall into, like, the best person for a thing without even trying. With the first being finding black belt karate, BBK, we called it. Um, Finding that as a place to study martial arts that ended up being this awesome place for me that was a Chuck Norris studio that I had no idea. And then later on, again, for another physical thing, I ended up in a Pilates studio that was run by a woman who was like who was taught by one of the last surviving people who was directly taught by Joseph Pilates. So it was like actual real Pilates as opposed to all the little offshoots of Pilates that are being taught now. So it was traditional Pilates, and then for comedy on the lot, with Paul Ryan, and then from Paul, I went to a man whose name was John Michalski, who was
Yep.
he was a Second City alum, and boy, that just like blew my head apart. It was amazing, and he wouldn't let me get away with the things that I was comfortable with, and one of the I remember this so clearly. One of the things that I always fall have always fallen back on as an actor is, just playing cute because that's what this face is. It's just a cute face, and that's fine. That's what people see when they look at it. So, he wouldn't let me do that, and one of the things that he did, he assigned characters, and he wanted me to be Jessica Rabbit. And I had to come up on stage and I had to talk about a an inanimate object as Jessica Rabbit. And I remember so clearly, I gave a wonderful talk about an Amana side by side, so
Right.
a refrigerator, and and I did it in a very Jessica Rabbit sort of way, and it was interesting because it was so different than not only what I was comfortable with, but, like, anything that I had ever been cast in, like, I at that point, I was, like, never cast as the sexy person, like, that's not really what I did. I was, like, always the person in danger or the person kicking somebody else's butt, so it just
Yeah.
depends on but never, like, really the sexy person.
Right. And you talked about Fury, and it's a great thing that you do. And basically, the idea of Fury was you wanted people to embrace magic and bring it to life. That was your mission statement. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm wearing my I'm wearing my fairy necklace right now. I love this necklace, it's so pretty. Um, for me, fairy is a spiritual path. Fairy is a way of life, and it's not just cute little fat cheeked baby fairies or whatever. It's like actual fairies from back from, like Irish fairies, Welsh fairies, English fairies, going back over there and learning that lore. And one of the things that I've had lots of discussions with people about is like the infantilization of fairy. During the Victorian era, fairies became these little diminutive things as opposed to full sized human looking sort of people who existed and were some sort of otherworldly and had some sort of power over humans, for many different reasons. But it's a fairy is for me, fairy is a way of life, and it is something that is in my life every day, all the time. Um, from how I choose to interact with the world to how I've decorated my house. I mean, it's all very important to me.
Yeah. And you know what I think, Brandy, when I see you do all these different things, is it all uh, reverts back to martial arts because I think from the time you were 11 and you were going to martial arts, you learned about respect, discipline, and stuff. But you always, like, what you learned more than anything else is being a good person because that's what it really taught you. You know, yes, you have this tool that you can use if you had to defend yourself and stuff like that. But really, you want to go out in the world and just make a difference and be a positive person. And that's really what I think martial arts probably taught you more than anything.
Discipline, integrity, loyalty, and respect. Those were the words that we said over and over and over again. They are on the logo. They were things that my first job when I was 14 was teaching martial arts in my studio. Um, and I was a black belt at that point, and I was teaching the little kids because I'm short, they're short. It seemed like the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Um, and the discipline, integrity, loyalty, and respect. That was the thing that was ingrained in me. And I felt honored and privileged to be able to pass that on to the kids that I was teaching.
Right.
And I I feel that martial arts in general, if you have a school that has that kind of core value, I think it's something that a lot of kids, a lot of people could benefit from
Yeah.
because we don't have a lot of third places so much anymore where people can go and they don't necessarily have to pay money to be there. And while a martial arts studio is definitely a place that you have to be at, it is a place where you can develop community. And if you don't have it any other way, I think it can be really, really beneficial and it it can feel like family.
Right. Definitely. So let me ask you this, Brandy. I mean, I know it was many years ago, but if you could take us back, what was the feeling like when you received your black belt? Because I mean, that had to be a proud moment, something you shared with your mother, and something that just had to be special for you on that day. So if you could reflect back on it, talk about it a little bit.
So it was a big day, actually. It was a big day for a lot of reasons. So we had it was a UFAF testing. It was the largest test in UFAF history. There were like, I don't know, 25 of us there testing that day. We had 13 people on our testing panel, including Mr. Norris. Uh,
Wow.
um, Mr. Rick Prieto, who was a very high-ranking man in UFAF, Pat Johnson, who also very high-ranking. He was essentially Mr. Norris's right-hand man. If you saw Karate Kid, the man who was the what is the word for it? Referee in the
Oh,
fight, like the ref in the final fight, that's Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson is the one who taught them what they were like he was the fight coordinator and he was the one who was teaching them martial arts in that movie. Also had the first female ever on a UFAF testing board. Her name was Beth. I cannot remember her last name. She was from Texas, but I was so excited to have a woman on my testing panel.
Yeah.
So again, 13 people on the testing panel. I think there was close to 25 or maybe more of us who were testing. I don't remember because it was a lot that day. And it took all day long to do it because everybody had to go through and they had to do all their forms and then and we couldn't all do it at one time. Oh, and it was at my studio. It was at the Black Belt Karate. The studio was right across the street from my house, so I didn't have to go anywhere. But people traveled from all over the US to come to this particular testing. And when I passed, I felt like it was the biggest thing I might ever do in my life because Mr. Norris, Mr. Prieto, Mr. Johnson, they were there. All of these people that I had such intense respect for as martial artists. They said I was good enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
You know, and it's funny, you painted the picture so well because I'm like trying to envision this and stuff like that. And I mean, you know, you did a great job of kind of like breaking it down for everybody. But I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. And it's just that to me was like the first of so many accolades because you have this desire and, like I said, commitment to be the very best you could be. And it's proven by so many other things you do. I mean, the other thing too that people may not be aware of, you're a personal trainer as well.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
This is my gym back here. That's me at my old gym.
Yeah.
That's the Green Micro Gym on Belmont in Portland. I used to be a personal trainer there pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
But then when the pandemic happened, I stopped going. I stopped going to the gym. I haven't been back into the gym since what was that day? March
March
13th.
11th. Yeah.
I
Or
think March 13th was the last day I was in the gym. Haven't gone back since. And then at some point in the 2020, we bought this house and we built this gym, and I love it. You can't tell, but this wall and
yeah.
this wall are glittery. And this is Bootius Maximus, the glitter gym for awesome people.
Yeah.
And I love it beyond belief, and I love having a gym in my house, and I love it that people come to my house to work out with me. And when the pandemic happened, I switched over to do everything I was doing was virtual, and I was training people online, and I was doing free high intensity interval training classes twice a week on Instagram. That's the glitter gym on Instagram. They're all still there. I haven't done anything there for about 2 years because I've had a lot of health issues that I've been trying to get through, and it's just been really difficult for me to do those things live. But there's 100 of them,
Wow.
over 100 of them. They're all there. They're all free. If you need an 18-minute and 30-second high intensity interval training workout, go to the glitter gym on Instagram and just choose one and go for it. They're all good, I promise.
Right. And I think that's so like awesome that you do that because again, you give back all the time, Brandie. And I don't feel like you do it for any other reason but to help people and to do whatever you can to you know, help somebody who is having issues with like, you know, jogging or lifting weights, whatever it might be, or whatever the case is. You're just out there, like I said, to be a good person, and I think that's what stands out about you the most. But
Thanks.
let's
I
let's talk.
try.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about acting. Like I said, I remember you in 1994 in an episode of VR Troopers. But where did your first like big break come in acting?
I don't know that I've had my first big break yet.
Yeah,
I I am still doing independent films and small things. I do a lot of those, a lot of little things. But the job that got me my SAG card was Blood Moon,
yeah,
which was a film. Was it 1996?
seven.
Seven? Thank you.
At
Yep,
1997. Yeah.
that's me kicking somebody in the side of the head
You know, I was going to bring
in
it
a
up that
bar.
I was going to bring it up in a few minutes, but we'll bring it up now. What I remember about Blood Moon more than anything else, Brandy, is you had really the one fight scene in the bar where,
Yeah.
like, you kind of take care of everybody, and then you have the little scene in the kitchen where he's attacking you and stuff. But I felt like that one performance in the bar, you stole the whole show in the movie, because Gary Daniels and I apologize, the other guy's name I think was Billy, right? His real name?
Chuck Jeffries, the
Chuck
black belt.
Jeffries, yeah.
Mhm.
They did so many fight scenes in that movie that you had seen like the same thing, but the one fight scene that you had, I felt like it just stole the whole show in the movie, and that's like a credit to you. And where it's really true what they say, less is more, because you really like impacted that movie in a matter of 3 minutes.
Thanks. Yeah, I that was a good that was a good time. I liked that one. I liked it because I also got to, I got to, like, break a bottle in that one. That was the first time
Yeah,
I'd ever gotten to do that in a fight. That was a good time. But, I tell you, that was the movie where I was Taft-Hartley, which means that I was non-union, and then they brought me into the union,
yeah.
for doing that film, which was fantastic, and I was super excited. That was also the time, though, where, I didn't there was nobody on that set that whose job it was to keep the actors safe, really, and, they have something called a stunt leg. I don't know if you've ever heard of this before, if you've ever seen it. They have a foam leg that they will dress up to look like different characters. In this case, it
Yeah.
was, Darren Shalavi, who, unfortunately has passed, but he was amazing and wonderful and a kind, kind man and an amazing martial artist. Um, but they dressed up the stunt leg to look like his leg, and they were hitting me in the face with it, like, ugh. And they, well, put a little bit of water because it was for a spit take, so put a little bit of water in your mouth, like, right there, and they hit it, and it would go, and they did not like how I was selling it. And so we did it over and over and over again, and I think we did it, like, 4 or 5 times, and the director was getting very frustrated. The director's first language was not English. Um, it was a Hong Kong film. Half of these people who were there, part of the crew spoke Cantonese, another part of the crew spoke Mandarin, and then there was a lot of locals who were speaking English. But the people who were in charge of the martial arts, the English was not their first language, and they didn't like how I was selling it. And I kept asking, "Could you please just tell me, show me what you want, and I'll do it. I just don't know. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Like, you're just saying do it again. Okay, but I'm not going to do it differently if you can't
Yeah.
tell me what it is that you don't like." So there was this, like, little huddle, and they were speaking a language I didn't understand, and I was like, "Okay," and they were like, "Okay, one more time." I was like, "Okay, one more time, but, what do you want me to do differently?" And they were like, "It's okay, just one more time." And I was like, "All right." And they hit me so hard, I ended up on the ground.
Oh,
That's the take that's in the movie.
yeah.
Um, and, I have a neck injury from that all of these
That,
years
yeah.
later. Like, my neck has never been the same since then. But yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I
it
mean, really, like I said, I mean, it was just the again, those few fight scenes you did, you really, it's true what they say, less is more, because you really just like, in my opinion, I know I sound like a broken record, but stole the show in that movie. But
well,
let me
thank
ask
you.
you this. Did you do your own stunts for that movie?
I did most of the stunts. There are a couple things that aren't me because they wanted to do stuff that I'm not capable of doing. And one of the ones that I think is super, super obvious that it's not me is the backflip
Yeah.
off the windowsill in the kitchen fight.
Yeah.
Everything else in the kitchen fight is me except that backflip. It's clearly my stunt double, whose name was Ten Kid, um, who I was told his name was Ten Kid because he was the 10th child born to his family. And I
Oh,
was like, that's a cool name, Ten Kid. I like it. They could have been pulling my leg. I don't know.
well, I'll say this much though, and let's get into this a little bit, because you've really had a career in stunts. I mean, you've done a great job doing stunts. And I mentioned this early in the episode. It's like almost you could compare it to like a football team with the offensive linemen. They're gonna make all the holes for the running back and make the running back look good. But they're really doing all the work. They're the ones blocking and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
that's really what the stunts do, because they're gonna make somebody like Tom Cruise look good. I mean, we all know Tom Cruise is a talented actor, but he's not a talented, you know, fighter or anything like that. But in Mission,
That's not true though. Of all the people to choose, Tom Cruise is out there doing his own stunts.
oh, he
All
does.
of them,
Okay,
all of them,
yeah.
all the time. There was, like, the story where he there was it Mission not the last Mission Impossible, but the one before, like, he wanted to do a specific stunt, like, he'd been thinking about it for years and he knew how to do it, and, his stunt coordinator told him, "No, it couldn't be done safely," so he fired that stunt coordinator, got another one, and did the stunt how he wanted to do it, and it looks fantastic. No, you can choose just about anybody else, but, no matter how you feel about Tom Cruise as a human,
No, I mean, I don't have
he's
nothing
out there
against
doing his own stuff.
I don't have nothing against him as a human. But the other thing is, though, being a stunt person, though, you
Mhm.
have to be talented. I mean, that's a lot of hard work. I mean,
It's a lot.
really, when you see these movies and you just see the type of moves that are going on, I mean, it's just amazing how talented they are. And I mean, the fact that you're doing that all the time, that says a lot about you, because you've mentioned the injuries you've had, the two shoulder surgeries, the neck injury from Blood Moon. And yet, in a lot of ways, I mean, you're still putting your body on the line when you do that stuff.
Yeah, 100%, you are, and I think every stunt person will eventually have that moment where they're like, "Oh, did I go one step too far? Did I, am I in did I injure myself irrecoverably this time?" Um, because a lot of stunt folks live on ibuprofen. I used to buy ibuprofen in the 500 capsule or 500 tablet bottle and eat it constantly. Um, that having been said, like way back in the day when that was happening, back when I was in my 20s and I was doing, that was like, yeah, that was all in my 20s. Um, that was also at a time in Hollywood when all the women were incredibly small.
Yeah.
So I I back then I weighed 105 pounds
Wow.
and was still being told that I needed to lose weight. And I was like, from where? And I need these muscles, like the little muscle that I did have. I'm like, I need these for my job. So I can't get rid of them. But so part of the reason back then that maybe I got so easily injured, learn from me if you're watching this, don't do what I did. Eat food. I wasn't eating enough at all. I absolutely wasn't feeding myself enough food to recover from the amount of work that I was doing fight practices, doing jujitsu practices, bouncing trampoline, practicing high falls, whatever. Well, high falls, mid falls. I was never a high fall person because that was just too much for me. But a mid fall's fine. So, like, doing all of those things, your body needs food to recover from it. So, if you are an aspiring stunt person, please know that you need to give yourself proper nutrition. And if they tell you that you need to lose weight, tell them to f off and go have go have dinner.
And I think that's the other thing I've learned about you tonight, Brandy, is it wasn't always, you know, I hate using this phrase, but peaches and cream, because you dealt with a lot of stuff. I mean, the fact that they're telling you you're not, selling the move the right way, and then you go down on the ground, you hurt yourself, you got this neck injury, and then they're telling you that you're not skinny enough, which is just ridiculous. I mean, to
Agreed.
be in this business, to do what you do, you sacrifice not only your social life, you sacrificed your emotional life too, in my opinion.
I don't know if I sacrificed my social life only because I was really happy having my social life be so like revolving around stunts and martial arts. 'Cause
Yeah.
most of my friends were stunt people, and when we hung out, we did stunt things. Like, one night I got to watch my friends set each other on fire. That was a good time. Um, but, it was all safe. There
Yeah.
was a fire extinguisher, nobody got hurt, it was all good. Um, so, yeah, like, I enjoyed that very much. Uh, but there was definitely a mental toll, there was definitely an emotional toll, and when I finally left Hollywood, um, it's probably a good thing that I left when I did, um, because I took a very long break,
Yeah.
and, it's probably a good thing that I left when I did because I had a really bad eating disorder, and, I'm not sure how long I would have lasted to continuing to treat my body the way that I was,
Right.
eating it up and not feeding it.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing too, is that I think sometimes people forget that celebrities are humans too. They go through the same things we do. They might be on a bigger platform than us as far as their work career goes, but they are normal people like, myself and everybody else. And they really do go through challenging things in their life. And I think, you, like so many others who I've interviewed, are proof that, like, you're great people and that you shouldn't be stereotyped just because you're in Hollywood.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know, it's
That's kind.
I brought this up when I first saw your work, and VR Troopers. I know, like, for a lot of people, they may not remember that show, but that one episode, I'll tell you, I was finally happy for the character Ryan. I thought he was going to have the girl of his dreams, and boy, did they set me and the viewers up because your
Uh,
character,
yes.
Alexis, was
Alexis
great.
Tobor.
Yep, and she was setting him up, because she was what was it, the rock, I forget the whole sequence, but I remember that that was basically the episode. You were going to try to make him teach you martial arts because you were having trouble with your spin kick and things
Yeah,
like that. And
yeah.
I just remember being so happy in the beginning. Oh, he's finally going to have, a nice girl. And then that lasted 5 minutes when I realized what she was up to. But I really believe it's like small parts like that that sometimes get your foot in the door and help you. It helps open up other doors. And I really thought that episode was tremendous, and you did a great job with that.
Thank you, and you know what? It did, because in that episode, I met, TJ Storm, who
Yeah.
was he was did a lot of stunts in that, and he was the person. So, spoilers, if you've never seen this episode, the episode of VR Troopers is called Into Oriclon's Web, and I played a character named Alexis Tobor. Tobor is robot spelled backwards. They
Yeah.
were so clever. And I was sent by Oriclon to lure Ryan Steele into virtual reality so that he could take him out. That was the plan. But at some point, I get water spilled on me, and I short circuit, and the robot inside of me like comes out, and it ends up being this 6'2" tall robot, which inside that was TJ Storm.
Yeah.
And having met him, I started doing more stunt training with him, and he brought me in on a couple of other films. And he's actually, if I had stayed in Hollywood longer, I might have had a very different career because he is like the king of mocap now.
Yeah.
He has a studio, that he runs with another person, her name is Andy Norris. It's called, Mind's Eye Tribe, and they train people to do mocap in video games and movies, and they're fantastic. But he was like Godzilla and Cyclops and, like, so many people. He's he's Groot. Do you know, like, the he was baby Groot in the one where, like, he's got the little button and he's running with the button,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's 6'2" TJ Storm being Groot. He's hilarious and wonderful, and he's just everybody. And I said Cyclops, and that's not right. Who's the tall silver guy in the Deadpool movies?
Oh, I know who you're talking about. It's a
Can't think of his name.
yeah,
Colossus. He's Colossus.
yeah,
That's who it was. So, in the first Deadpool, he was Colossus. So he's done so many things. He's Darth Vader in video games, and he's amazing. I have amazing friends. I know some people who do awesome, awesome things, and I am in awe of my friends every day.
yeah. I mean, it really is remarkable what so many of you do. Now, you this is a question I wanted to ask because this was a popular YouTube video years ago that got on YouTube, and people to this day can't understand. They don't know if it's a movie or
Right.
a skit you did, but it's the one with you in a skirt and you're
Yes.
doing the karate. What exactly was that, a film or was that something you did?
So that is Karate Girl Wears Skirt is the
Yeah,
name of it,
yeah,
and, it was LMU, Loyola Marymount University's directing student. It was his graduate thesis. It was the short film that he had to make to get his degree from LMU,
right.
and he wanted to do a martial arts film. So, and he wanted it to be a girl in a skirt because he there was the Cynthia Rothrock films with her doing moves in the flowy skirts, like, that was his inspiration for that, and everybody loves Cynthia Rothrock
Oh yeah,
back in the day, like, she was it. And, so we did that, and the funny thing about that is that he cast me first, and then he cast all of the bad guys around me, so they're all short too. Like, you can't tell if you look at that, you can't tell that I'm 5'2", and they're all, like, 5'5", 5'6". I think that tallest person there was 5'7". So we were all relatively short, and that it makes a difference in how you fight. Fighting somebody closer to your height versus fighting somebody really tall. So it actually made for a, a more fun for me fight scene because I got to do things that otherwise I can't do if I'm fighting a really tall person. That having been said, the lead bad guy who makes it to who makes it to the final fight, his name is Hiro Koda, and
yeah.
he has his own stunt team now, and they are all over the place making amazing movies and television. And if I remember correctly, 2 years ago they won an Emmy
Oh yeah,
for best stunts, and I feel like they won another because they've won several awards. We'll leave it at that. They're also the ones I think doing the stunts for Cobra Kai.
yeah.
So very cool, very cool. Yeah, again, I have friends who are doing really cool things, and like I'm aggressively supportive.
And
That is what
I
I've
don't
been accused of.
I don't want to get off topic, but I will say this because you brought her up. And no disrespect to Chuck Norris, he is one of the best of all time. But I think Cynthia Rothrock is the best I've ever seen. And
She's outstanding.
yeah, she really is. I mean, like everything looks believable. I mean, she just really is a credit to martial art films everywhere. She really is.
100%, and because she got to do it because she was so good.
Yeah,
And, it wasn't that she was this drop dead beautiful, gorgeous person, and then they trained her to be a fighter. She was a fighter, and
yeah.
they were like, "You're amazing, let's make movies," and she was like, "Yes, let's do that, let's make movies," and she's just an amazing martial artist who I think inspired, some generation of female
Well,
fighters.
I think she made it where it's not a man's sport anymore, which people used to think it was. I think she proved that women could hold their own, and that to me is her greatest legacy. Is she opened those doors for other women in martial arts. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yep.
so before we go, one thing I
Mhm.
wanted to bring up is as impressive as everything you've done, and you've done so many great things. You have a bachelor's, you have a master's. I mean, you have an undergrad degree in microbiology from Santa Barbara or US Santa Barbara.
UC
And
Santa Barbara, yeah.
yeah, and you also, during your time at Johns Hopkins, did you helped with cancer research. You got to study that a little bit. So just talk about that because I think that is the most impressive thing you've done is what you've done, in the classroom and stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, so when I left Hollywood, I moved to Baltimore, but I guess before that, and when I was in college, my undergraduate degree is from UC Santa Barbara, and yeah, it's in microbiology with an emphasis in genetic engineering. I got that degree, and then promptly moved to Hollywood and didn't use it at all. Um, and I was in working in Hollywood for like 6 or 7 years before I stopped, and I moved to Baltimore. And when I was in Baltimore, I did a little bit of community theater, not a lot. Um, but I got a job working at Johns Hopkins, and while I was working there, I applied to graduate school there, and I ended up getting a master's degree in biotechnology with my emphasis in cancer biology. And while I was working there, I was working in the lab of Dr. Judith Bender, and I met some of the folks who are my friends still to this day. They are amazing humans, so smart. And yeah, so I got to do work in a plant called Arabidopsis thaliana, which is related to mustard. You probably have it as a weed in your garden right now. It is a very it is a very facile, vector for doing different types of cancer research, and specifically, we were studying the methylation status of genes that can cause cancer, methylation turn on and off genes, and it was very, very cool, and I got to do a lot of research that was then put into a database called the Tiger database, which I recently looked up and has now been absorbed by a different database, so it no longer exists, but that's okay, I don't mind. But yeah, we were doing basic cancer research and, fe our research fed into other people's research, so we were doing the basic stuff, and then they were taking the stuff that we were doing and doing cooler things with it.
Right. Well, Brandy, I mean, everything you've done in your career, like I said, is just unbelievable. And you're a credit to Hollywood, you're a credit to martial arts, to everything you do. And I really do applaud you on what has been a wonderful career. And your career doesn't have to take a back seat to anybody. I mean, everything you've done, the most important thing is you, in my opinion, you've created positivity and, you know, embraced so many wonderful things and inspired so many people out there. And I think that's your legacy. So I thank you for giving me a few minutes to say it was a real honor for me.
Thank you so much. You have made me feel better about myself than I have felt in a really long time. So this was really good for me to do. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And folks, I followed this very talented young woman back in 1994. I first saw her work. I continued to follow her career as so many fans did. The things she's done in her career. I mean, listen, it's not easy to go out there and go one on one with somebody and do it for so many years. But she did it because she has a desire to be the very best she could be. She wants to make a difference. She does that in her everyday life. You see it time and time again. But more importantly than anything else, when I look at Brandie Sylfae, I look at her, the human being. She is one of the best human beings you will ever meet. She's a credit to Hollywood, like I said, to martial arts, just society in general. And we need a person like Brandie in society because she inspires so many. For In the Spotlight, I'm Mike Kenichi saying good night, everyone.